Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the Mining Podcast. And we have a returning guest today who appeared back in May 2021, which was episode 138, which is probably about 15 months ago. So feel free to go back after you listen to this episode and listen to our first conversation that we had, like I said, about 15 months ago. So we have Tony Reda, who's the founder, president, and CEO of Tectonic Metals, are a mineral exploration company focused on the acquisition, exploration, discovery, and development of mineral resources from district-scale projects in politically stable jurisdictions that have the potential to hold world-class ore bodies in Canada and the US. Tony's been in the industry for over 20 years and has been involved in a number of developments and acquisitions, and he's going to give us an update on what Tectonic Metals have been up to since we last spoke and much more. So that's welcome, Tony, back to the podcast. How you doing, Tony?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. As we were saying off air, England is going through a bit of well, so they call it a heat wave.
Yeah.
So I'm in the office with no air conditioning, but we're all good. I've got some of the windows open, so there's a little bit of air coming through, but we're all good.
Good.
So just wondering, you give us a quick overview of your background. Obviously, when we first recorded podcast, like I said, 15 months ago, you probably gave us a little bit more in depth, but just wondering if you can just tell us a little bit about your background in a snapshot.
Sure. Funny enough, someone just asked me this question yesterday, and I was at a conference about 2 weeks ago. And, the genesis of how the hell do you get in the mining industry is something that gets commonly asked. And for me, it got traced back to the right young age of 21, where I met an individual at a bar, and he told me to buy a mining stock. And so I did that, actually, and I took my hard-earned money and invested in a junior mining company. That was 1995. I thought I was pretty smart because it made a bit of money. I'm like, maybe I got this. Off I went and cut another check. I actually then decided to go get a credit line and borrow to invest in junior mining companies. And this beauty of a scam called Bre-X happened in 1997. And to put it very bluntly, maybe the English say, I got my ass served to me.
We understand what that means.
Yeah, it's cross-cultural, cross-country. So I wrote off the mining space. I said, these companies are all a bunch of crooks and shysters. And 2005, I decided to try to inflict change. And maybe I could do something different. And I'm going to make sure the company I work for is a legitimate, honest, technically driven company. And I was fortunate enough to get hired by this company in 2005 as investor relations. And that company was called Kaminak Gold Corporation. And we took that company from a couple $1 million when I joined private. I was the second hire. They hired a CEO and they hired a geologist, go figure, as the CEO. I was the second hire, and we, i.e. the team, took the company to 520 million in 2016. So in an 11-year period, grew the company immensely. We found 5 million ounces, brand new, grassroots, never drilled before up until Kaminak. We drilled the discovery, delineated 5 million ounces. And although that sounds like quite the Cinderella story, there was times where we wanted to, sort of slit our wrists. 08 happened, which was a very much a dire time, and then 2013 as well. So, it's not always a straight line to the top, but that's a bit about my background. And with Tectonic, I'm still, committed to, how can we improve our industry? Is there a better way to operate? Is there a better way to create value for our shareholders? And that is a lifelong process. I don't say I have all the answers, but we try to put our best foot forward, and Tectonic is trying to mimic the path that Kamenak was on, and perhaps slightly different, maybe possibly even a bit better in the sense of on the ESG front, initiating more early and things of that nature. So that's a bit about my background and why I do what I do.
Yeah. Why don't you just give us a quick, again, snapshot of Tectonic, and also, I suppose, give us an update since we last spoke 15 months ago, because I imagine quite a lot has happened since then.
Yeah, in junior mining, a whole lifetime can happen in 15 months.
And that's not just the share price crashing or anything like that.
No, and that's good and bad. We always talk about all the awesome things, and when I said the word lifetime, we did have something detrimental happen where our chair unexpectedly passed away, and he's in the Indigenous Hall of Fame. Yeah, thank you. He was a dear friend as well, but he was someone that I didn't know previously. When we formed Tectonic, we were trying to pick, attributes, skills, experiences of people from a diverse range and to bring independence to the board. And so Mel Benson brought that. He was an oil and gas tycoon in the Indigenous Hall of Fame, recognized for his philanthropic efforts. And so, he unexpectedly passed away. And what the person that stepped into that role is a woman by the name of Alison Rippon Armstrong. And so, she's not of Indigenous descent. She is Canadian, but what she brings to the table that, again, is slightly different than perhaps what most companies bring is she's an environmental biologist. And she's also been involved in the permitting of 9 mines. She currently does work even with the UN right now. So, again, an exploration company is not just about finding deposits or finding economic deposits. There's a whole suite of skills and talent that need to be brought to the table in order to turn a discovery into a successful mining operation. And believe it or not, environmental biologists play a role in that. And also permitting people and community relations. So that's what Alison brings to the table. She is someone also from the Kamenak pedigree, if you will. And so that's transpired. We are in the field. We raised $7 million last year, executed a multiple drill program. We announced those drill results. Yes, we found gold, some really exciting drill results. We've also acquired in the last 15 months a brand new project. We have to keep our pipeline healthy. I think we often forget, and I rather will remind all the listeners out there that roughly 99% of the projects fail. That's reality. That's not that's not a pie in the sky number. That's reality. So projects fail. You have to have a pretty healthy project pipeline. And you also have to mitigate risk. So one of the things that we do that's slightly different is we work directly with native corporations in Alaska on native-owned land. We engage early as part of the acquisition process. We say, hey, are you open to mining? Do you want to work together? And so this native corporation is the largest landholder in the state of Alaska. And they actually had a property or a project near the 45 million ounce Donlin gold deposit. And that deposit is currently owned and operated 50-50 by Barrick, the largest gold company in the world, and by Nova Gold. 45 million ounces is probably one of the largest, if not the largest, open pit projects undeveloped in the world. So this mineral belt has the capability to produce elephant-sized deposits, and we went looking in that mineral belt, and lo and behold, we acquired a project called Flat. And we're really excited about that project because the geological footprint suggests something multi-million ounce potential. There's also 50 historical drill holes, such as 12 grams over 20 meters. There's also a half gram per ton over 80 meters, but it's an intrusion-related gold system that the drilling, the golden soils, and the footprint suggest something, of extreme magnitude. So that's an acquisition that we made. And we've also announced another appointment to our board of directors. Alaska, I would say probably Alaska's most well-known resource lawyer. He's been involved in working directly with the federal government, the state government, the native corporations, major mining companies, and companies such as Tectonic. Every major mine, he's played a role in some fashion in the from the legal perspective. So again, a board or a mining company or an exploration company, it's not just about geology. You need the whole gamut. And his name is Joe Perkins, and we're quite honored to have him on the team. We've also had our indigenous partner or native corporation, also along with some of our key shareholders, large institutional shareholders such as Crescat, Gold 2000. They all reinvested in Tectonic, and Crescat and Doyon not only reinvested, they actually increased their share ownership. And Doyon is the native corporation. So we're actually being funded not only by quality resource funds, but also by native corporations. So native capital going into a company to go explore on native, on native owned land. And we took that capital, and we're actually now drilling one of our projects, a different project called 70 Mile. It's a greenstone belt. Gold deposits and greenstone belts go hand in hand. And we're excited and eager. We've sent samples to the lab, and now we're waiting patiently and eagerly for the results to come in to see if there could be a bona fide new discovery in there.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned about one of your previous board members passing.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously have a strong relationship with the Alaskan Native Corporation.
Yes.
Doyon is obviously one of the first, if not to sort of pioneer exploration to production agreements with obviously native corporations. Just wondering if you can just tell us a little bit about the relationships that you have with them and why it's important to Tectonic.
So the success at Kaminak was in the Yukon Territory of Canada. You can see sort of the top left, at least from my perspective, maybe from your viewers too, of that map there. So Alaska and Yukon share a political border, but not a geological border. So we had success in the Yukon, but what intrigued me about Alaska is that there are very established native corporations that are sophisticated, that have interactions or dealings or ownerships or royalties in the mines in Alaska. And I thought, if we can work collectively together on day one, not when we find something, but on day one, could we do something different? So I actually, pitched to Doyon this concept of doing a full exploration to production agreement. Now, these aren't these projects that we have, they're at earlier stage. Some have never been drilled. Some have few drill holes, like Flat had 50 drill holes historically. And so I wanted something all-encompassing that would benefit them, us, and the local community. So these agreements took us about 10 months to orchestrate, and it's exactly what you have as an agreement. The equivalent would be like something like an IBA, which is an impact benefits agreement in Canada, and that's typically negotiated around the feasibility stage when you know what the economics are. So we basically took the end and placed it at the beginning. And so we have exploration expenditure requirements, annual commitments, but we also have scholarship contributions. So to nonprofit entities, the Doyon nonprofit organization that we use to funnel into schools, universities, colleges, students, promoting earth sciences or some other initiative that benefits the local communities. We have communication protocols where we're mandated to communicate regularly, environmental protocols or provisions where we have to conduct environmental audits and insurance, all like anything you can, and reclamation and production and royalties. And so those agreements, I think, provide comfort to both parties here, but also to potentially a suitor that, if we did make a significant mineral discovery and there was a major producing company that wanted to make an acquisition, they don't have to go back to the drawing board. They can actually pick up the agreement and run with it into production. And this is something that is novel and new to my knowledge, that hasn't really been done before.
Obviously, with geopolitical tensions rising globally, since obviously Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and obviously increasing friction between China and the threat of, I suppose, the threat to potentially some of the mining industry. Where is a project located? Has obviously taken on a renewed importance. How does Alaska stack up to be a place to do business in, with obviously respect to mining?
Well, obviously I'm biased, because I work in Alaska, but, for me, coming off of this $520 million win, and that's the company was sold. So just to be clear, that wasn't my personal capital. But coming off of a win, we did have choices in front of us of where to work and explore. And one of our founders, a mining entrepreneur and professional with an outstanding track record, her name is Ira Thomas. Her and I actually were, trying to figure out, what we wanted to do next, where we wanted to work. And the filter that we came up with, as both of us were two single parents, so we have kids. I have kids, she has kids. But as business partners, we were like, maybe the right filter to utilize is, would we take our kids there? And so that's a different filter than, does this have multi-million ounce potential, or is there visibility for a mine? But I wanted something safe and secure, and I wanted, as an active father, to also, be relatively close to my kids. And if I did take them there and expose them to what I did, we can all sleep well at night. So that was our filter. But more specifically to your question, what is Alaska a good project? Well, it ticks that box. It also has 7 producing mines, and from a resource potential, it is vastly untapped. I also love rule of law, first world jurisdictions. These again provide comfort to me. Things can go astray in first world jurisdictions, for sure. Our industry is getting harder and harder, but I would invite everyone, from investors to actual company executives, to look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, are we putting our best foot forward, or we're just pointing a finger and blaming the jurisdiction? And this project didn't get permitted. Well, what did you do? Did you form an exploration production agreement? Did you engage early on day one? Are they shareholders in your company? Did you listen to the communities? The communities tell you at day one, we don't want you here. So those are the questions that we ask. And I do think, you commented on the war, with the war being Russia and Ukraine, and there's tensions now between the States and China, and there's tension all over in the world. But what the latest events have really highlighted, at least to me, is that the necessity for looking for homegrown resources. There is a need for resources, whether it's oil and gas, copper, battery metals, critical metals, even gold. If we can find those, develop those, and produce them here, then it's within our sort of control, and our countries, our homegrown countries, get the benefit. And that to me has been a wake-up call. And there has been a movement as of late from local producers, North American producers, to stick to jurisdictions that offer political safety, less jurisdictional risk, and can be a direct pipeline to support the countries that we live and operate in. So I think also on the investment side, we're not letting the geological opportunity trump our investment decisions, in the sense that, like, okay, this is a great geological opportunity, but it's in an unstable political jurisdiction. There's so maybe we as investors need to rethink our capital. And there's also this movement again towards ESG, because we've recognized that, again, it's not just the geology that trumps everything. There's the environmental, the social governance, and there's an ethics behind who we put our capital behind. We want to support quality companies. So that movement's been going on for quite some time. It's really come to a box ticking exercise now for resource funds where they're like, okay, we want to see ESG reporting. So I think Alaska is one of the few terrains, like the challenge with North America. It's one of the challenges that these mining jurisdictions like Nevada, Ontario, for example, they're mature districts. They're hard. It's hard to walk in and find a tier 1 deposit that hasn't been exploited or looked at before. So you kind of have to go further afield, and hence why there was a movement probably 20, 30 years ago to go overseas and other jurisdictions that perhaps weren't as favorable. But now I think there's a movement going back into like Northern Canada, Northern United States, or with Alaska and other jurisdictions. So I think that trend is not going anywhere right now, and it's going to continue to flourish.
Yeah, you obviously mentioned Alaska is an untapped jurisdiction for mining. Mm-hmm. Why would obviously you mentioned, and you can see it, that mining companies are looking at homegrown jurisdictions. But if an international company was looking at Alaska, what would attract a foreign investment to the area? And what are some of the preconceptions mining companies may have in looking at Alaska as a mining jurisdiction?
Yeah. So every human being possibly has, we have our pros and our cons, and every jurisdiction is not a slam dunk. Alaska's not the holy grail. So it does have some challenges that need to be dealt with. So it's kind of like pick your poison. For me, political risk, bullets flying past my head, terrorism, all things like that. I'm, as a father, I'm good. I don't need to go to those places, and being in roughly the same time zone. Well, that's advantageous to me. And also when I make my investment decisions, I look at things of that nature. So the challenges, I'll start with that with Alaska, is that, there's this northern climate. So, in summertime, you get, roughly 22 hours of daylight, and in wintertime, you get 22 hours of darkness. Those are the two extremes. You also get, it's full-blown summer there too. Like right now, it's in Celsius, for example, it's 30 degrees Celsius, depending where you're situated, 25, 24. And, winter starts to kick in a bit earlier than, say, a jurisdiction down south. But, you have to deal with cold climate conditions. And that to me, that's not a negative. That's whether it's Northern Canada. Speaking of Russia, has a lot of producing mines that operate in that fashion. There's also mines in the Andes and Chile and those kind of mountainous regions, and some parts of the United States too has very extreme cold climate conditions in the winter months. Other jurisdictions have a rainy season. They can wreak havoc with a lot of the mining operations or heap leach pads and things of that nature. Some jurisdictions have seismic issue where earthquake and seismic activities is an issue. So Alaska has the seasonality. It's sometimes perceived remote. It can be. It's also perceived as a bit costly. So those are some of the headwinds against it. The positives are Alaska has 7 producing mines, and for a northern jurisdiction, it has what I feel to be a really good infrastructure, thanks to the oil and gas industry, the military presence up there as well, the U.S. military presence. It's got pretty, for me, working in northern Canada, it's got excellent infrastructure. The energy or grid is not tapped out. There's power, things of that nature. There's rail, there's a pipeline. And also on the geological side, I said the 7 producing mines, there are tier 1 deposits. So it's always comforting to go into a jurisdiction where there's a tier 1 deposit or tier 1 mine, and successful mining operations are present in Alaska. The Kinross Fort Knox mine is a great example of that. There's Greens Creek, there's the Pogo mine. These are profitable mining operations, and so that to me is attractive. When I look at the mineral endowment, it's quite healthy and quite robust. And if you look at the exploration expenditures in Alaska, the biggest countries that contribute that are they toggle back and forth. It's either Australia or Canada and then US as far as the majority of exploration expenditures that go into the state. And, you're like, okay, well, Australia is very much a mining country. So why are they attracted to that? And for me, it's the, untapped potential. It's the potential for tier one deposits. The high grade Australians tend to be also explorationists as well, and just like us Canadians. So those are very attractive attributes. I can walk up to a project like Flat that has 12 grams over 20 meters, or go to a mineral belt that's hosting 45 million ounces, and there's no one around. We moved into the Good Pasture district, which hosts the Pogo mine, also owned by an Australian mining company. And there's maybe like 3 or 4 juniors in the entire district. This is a 10 million ounce gold mine, and there's not really anyone else looking. So I can go into a district, acquire large land positions, work directly with native corporations. Trying to do that in, say, Ontario, the Timmins, Red Lake, Kirkland, those prolific gold belts, or the Abitibi, it's very hard to, or Nevada, it's very hard to walk in there and say, okay, I'm going to grab this massive district scale land position and go up to a mine. If Pogo was in Kirkland or Red Lake or Nevada, there would be no land position left to grab. And the same can be said about Donlin, a 45 million ounce deposit, and it's owned by Barrick. They're spending $60 million this year, and there's no one around. It's like, well, this makes absolutely no sense. So you do have to tolerate a few things, but the prize, I believe, outweighs the cons.
Yeah, you mentioned how you got into mining by having getting a stock tip and investing. Do you still invest now? And what are your thoughts on sort of the recent equity slump? Although just more recently it's starting to slowly recover. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so my investment days, I still invest for sure. We all drink the Kool-Aid, and we love our industry, and so, but I'm not as heavy as an investor because it takes time to manage multiple investments, and I have 3 kids and I run a company, so it's not a top priority, but I do dabble. And the current environment to me is very reminiscent of 2008, where there's a massive irrational sell-off and things just got decimated. Kaminak, for example, went from $65 million market cap to $6-7 million market cap. We were trading for the low of 6.5 cents. And so, there's a lot of investors, whether it's on the buying or sell side, are driven by emotions. And right now, fear is rampant, and it doesn't make sense. The fundamentals behind the mineral space, in my opinion, are quite strong, if not the best they've been in the last few years, but sentiment doesn't necessarily reflect that. So I think if you had, if you're comfortable with the mineral exploration space, or let's just say the gold space and the stage that these projects are at, I think there is definitely going to be a re-rating here that will work to your favor. You do have to endure a bit of maybe discomfort, and also a bit of volatility. But I do think, come this time next year, things will be in a more positive light. Now, I want to specify, that's not just a broad statement that covers the whole sector. You do have to execute discipline and say no to a lot of investments, and then pick perhaps the right one. So, looking at a company that, okay, what are your catalysts that you're going to do to create value, and how is the stock or this company going to go from a $10 million market cap to 100 million? Are you sitting on your hands waiting for a better market, or waiting for gold to rise? Is that an approach you want to invest in? And I would say that could happen, and things may re-rate just on that fact alone. But is the company sitting on their hands, or they're actually doing something? And in our industry, if you're not drilling, you're not finding. And so that is a double-edged sword, because drilling is the biggest creation of wealth, and it's also the biggest destruction of wealth. So you have to pick your jockeys wisely and be comfortable with losing that capital, or if things go astray. But I do think, the bottom's always a great time. People ask, is this the bottom? I'm like, well, I can tell you one thing, it ain't the top. This ain't Bitcoin. This ain't Bitcoin at $70,000. I had my son, who's 13 years old. He bought his first stock, and he comes to me, Dad, I want to buy Bitcoin. I'm like, oh my God. So he's like, he actually asked me, I'm like, it's $70,000. He's like, well, you think it's going higher? I go, well, I can tell you, like, you're never going to pick the top, and you're never going to pick the bottom, but this sure as hell feels like the top. And I can tell you right now, in some companies in the gold space or in the mining space, I'm like, I don't know if this is the bottom, but man, it definitely isn't the top. And I think there's a lot more upside. Sometimes the biggest cure for low prices is low prices. And things just aren't making sense. And I think, even looking at where we were at, say, a month or 2 months ago, things have already gone up a bit. There seems to be a little bit of a bounce back up here, just on a re-rating perspective the last month here. So those are my two thoughts. I don't know all the answers, but I think if you believe in a company, believe in the management team, there's always money to be made, whether it's a bear or bull market. You just have to pick and choose wisely.
Yeah, and I think the fundamentals are in favour of exploration, because there is obviously the demand for various minerals, metals, whether it's precious base metals. There's been, because there's been an undersupply of exploration in the past for a number of years. They're behind the eight ball now. So explorations is ever more important now than it ever has been. And I suppose I speak to so many people on these podcasts, and I just think the exploration space is going to be pretty busy for the foreseeable future, trying to find these particular projects, tier one assets, because obviously it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of capital, even though markets go up and down. But it's needed for humanity to move forward.
Yeah. What's really interesting to me, I asked myself, like, how is our industry going to evolve and grow? And these mining CEOs, so these production companies, the CEOs, like, we want tier one deposits, but we're spending very little on exploration, but we want them. And it's just like, okay, well, a tier one deposit. I think it's 500,000 ounces of gold production per annum for 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. So, these deposits don't fall out of the sky. They need to be found. They need to occur and be discovered organically. So there was this movement, hence why we got taken out. There's movement towards, acquiring these assets. So we're going to buy our ounces. Then the major mining companies were like, shoot, there's not that many tier one deposits left, or there's none, so let's start buying each other. So that starts happening because they need to get their production profiles up to increase their reserves. Every day of production, they're actually depleting the reserves more and more. So they're like, okay, we look to each other to grow. Newmont and Goldcorp merging, for example, Kirkland and Agnico. These are huge acquisitions. Then Detour Lake got taken out, Great Bear got taken out. And now you're looking at the space and you're like, okay, so there's none. So now, okay, some investors are like, or companies, we need to go back to or exploration. But the economic discoveries are way down, and there's barely any capital, like, going into grassroots exploration. And then what's happened now, to add another layer to this conversation, is that you have these billionaire tycoons, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. They're like, they recognize the importance of, say, battery metals, copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium, so on and so forth. And they're looking to the mining companies and saying, yeah, I think we're going to go do it ourselves. And so they have formed agreements with some mining companies, but these individuals have formed companies such as Cobalt, Ivanhoe Electric. They're raising 200 million, and they're using, artificial intelligence. They got a team of geologists, and they're funding their own exploration. They're not waiting for the mining companies to get their supply. So they're going to go after their own supply. And that is something we haven't seen before. And I think in the gold space that is also going to transcend in some way, shape, or form, where the mining companies need to wake up, and it's happening. But I do think that the switch has been turned on, just like the Russia-Ukraine war. Oh shoot, we should get our own oil and gas locally and not import it. Okay, and so the gold conversation is happening. The battery metals has already taken off, and it's there. I.e. our mining industry, is being inspired by the Elon Musk, the Jeff Bezos, saying, shoot, you know what, maybe we need to dedicate some resources to go finding these tier 1 deposits and turning back to early stage exploration. And it's like, okay, well, where are you going to go find those opportunities? And there's not a whole lot of early stage, I would say, left in those mature gold belts. You have to look further afield, and hence, places like Alaska, I think, are going to continue to attract investors' attention. But we need to attract investors' capital and people to fund the vision of trying to find that next tier 1 deposit.
Yeah, but I suppose it's hard for junior miners to attract the necessary capital all the time. And I suppose it's the larger mining corporations that need to attract the money to then filter it down, because I take it some of the larger mining companies are doing some exploration, but they can't do everything. And they rather let the junior miners do the exploration and then get it to a certain stage before then they go and obviously joint venture with them or just buy them out completely.
Yeah, and they've gone on record saying that that they prefer to buy their ounces versus explore for them. Now some have done exploration, or they do some exploration, but the reality is the junior mining companies need capital to fund. Like, okay, we're going to go buy our ounces. Well, who's going to fund that? The capital, these ounces need to be funded in order to find them, and someone has to put the capital forward, otherwise it ain't happening. So
yeah, interesting times ahead. So wrapping up as a conclusion, just wondered if you can give us an overview of the next sort of 6 to 12 months of what you're up to. Because no doubt you'll be on in another 12 months, and you can give us an update. So yeah, how do you see the next 6 to 12 months playing out?
Yeah, sorry, and I have sunlight coming through a window here, so I'm trying to avoid the glare in my eyes here. But the next 6 to 12 months, what I see unfolding for Tectonic is, we're wrapping up this drill program, so we do have assay results from several zones, several targets on this property called 70 Mile that we expect to start trickling in probably September-ish. We'll get the first set of results, and so that could be something that could be quite transformational for our company. We are also launching a metallurgical program and an exploration program on that new acquisition called Flat. And although that's not drilling per se, we do see it as, at least the metallurgy, as a huge de-risk, given that there is already gold endowment there on the property through the historical drilling that took place. The metallurgy is something that's going to de-risk and potentially add a lot of value to that project. So that the samples have been already selected, and it's actually literally just got shipped. It's getting shipped to the lab this week. So we'll get those results in anywhere from, again, we're kind of at the mercy of the labs here, and they're feeling the pressure as a lot of industries are, as far as like staff shortages and turnaround times and things of that nature. But we'll get those results in probably about 3 months or so. And the exploration results, it's a surface campaign, those will be trickling in again also in about 3 months. And then we're looking to, based on the results and based on the met and exploration results that come in, we'll assess, what the next steps are on those projects. We also always keep an eye open for new opportunities. So that's something that the next 6 months could bring. As part of our business model, we are big fans of partnerships and working with other companies. And so that's something that may materialize and also come to fruition. But really the drill results are going to drive how we move forward in the next later half of this year.
Yeah. Tony, wish you all the well for the remainder of this year, going into next year. It's a great, obviously, story, a lot of work ahead. And obviously wish you well moving forward. And let's not leave it 15 months next time. Let's hopefully record another podcast beginning part of next year. If our audience wants to reach out to you, how can they go about doing that? I know you're active across social media as well, so just wondered if you can let us know how people can get in contact with you.
Yeah, what I would say about the junior mining space and our company is that you can actually speak with the CEO. You know, you can't get in touch with Jeff Bezos, at least it's pretty challenging to. You know, you can actually reach out to me, and we love interacting with our investment community. So that being said, you know, LinkedIn, we have a Tectonic Metals page, so feel free to sign up or follow us on there. I have my own personal LinkedIn, Tony Reda. And also info@tectonicmetals.com. And if you put an email address to me, we do have an investor relations individual as well. So, you know, we'll get back to you, and, you know, always open to engage. And on our website, you can actually click book a meeting with Tony. And that is something that, you know, I love doing. And, you know, as much as I love exploring, I also, one of the benefits of this industry is interacting with people and forming new relationships and getting to know our shareholder base. So please don't hesitate to reach out on those fronts.
Yeah, certainly a lot of ways to get in contact with you, and obviously access information and news feed from your company. So obviously encourage our listeners to reach out to Tony, follow them on obviously the various media channels, go to their website, and if you've got any questions, obviously, like Tony said, feel free to reach out to him, and he can answer any of the queries that you may have. Thanks a lot, Tony. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Those that are listening, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I think we've had spoken about Alaska a few times on this podcast, but obviously Tectonic have got some interesting assets that they're obviously looking to develop. So appreciate if you can share this episode amongst others around the world. Obviously a great jurisdiction for companies to consider, whether you're in Northern America, or even anywhere around the world where you're looking to acquire more assets. Certainly a jurisdiction to consider. So until next time, happy mining.